Eastern Standard Time. So first of all, thank you again for jumping on. We had a very large registration list for this webinar. It was actually over 400, which is fantastic. So I guess that would be either due to the social distancing, everybody having a little bit extra time on their hands, or there's some understanding around learning more about the remote workforce, which certainly we hope it's the latter of that one. But either way, we got some good stuff to share with everybody today. So we certainly appreciate you joining, taking time out of your day. There'll be some questions at the end that we'll be able to address with this. So if you need those, you can just send them in the chat, and Summer and Nikki can take them down. I'll make sure that I carve out a little bit of time towards the end to go through this stuff. So as usual, this is being recorded. We'll look to send this out within the next 24 hours. And again, at the end of it, we'll have some time for questions. So we're kind of here today. I mean, obviously we live and breathe day to day around enabling the remote workforce at RapidScale, but certainly there's some events that are happening across the world that's really certainly driving this conversation. So we want to just make sure that we're educating you, giving you an understanding of what's going on. What is the reason for this? Of course, how does RapidScale do this, and how do we enable the remote workforce? And just to kind of give you this good holistic picture, because things are certainly changing. We've had obviously a big compelling event, and typically that drives a change of behavior. In this case, there's a lot of forced behavior. So prior to the event, right, as we'll call it, there were some trends that we were already starting to see. There's a lot of new softwares out there. There's a lot of companies that are bringing these technologies to the employees and to businesses that are enabling and allowing for more of a remote work from home, work from anywhere type of atmosphere. So one pretty big stat that, I'm not a stat person, right? I don't like to go through these things very much, but one pretty impressive stat was around the 775% growth that Microsoft has seen. Obviously that, if we go pull those numbers, a month from now, it's going to be even higher, but it's pretty crazy how that 365 product has taken over the space. There was some events that have happened with that, of course, leading up to this, which was the end of life for Windows 10, Windows Office 2010. So that's no longer going to be supported in October. So a lot of those companies that were on 2010 historically had purchased their licensing directly through Microsoft, had pivoted to a 365 model because they were essentially kind of forced to do it. But with that, they're enabling their business, and there's a lot of collaboration features such as Team and SharePoint. We'll talk a little bit more into that, but it's pretty cool to see how people are adopting that technology. Again, workforce, working from home multiple days a week. This is really what, from a quality of life perspective, what businesses are trying to portray. You don't really need to be chained to your computer. You don't need to be within the four walls to be productive and work for the business. And then the last one, which is interesting, I wasn't really aware of this until recently, was around kind of some of the cost savings that a business can have whenever they are enabling the remote workers and they're having people work from home, to be able to actually save some money on them. Now, I personally think that there's kind of a happy medium here between the person that kind of works at home all the time and then kind of goes into the office. So there's a balancing act, right? But really, it's not about what you're being told to do or how you're doing it. It's what you're capable of doing for the business and how you're able to still be productive. So looking at the traditional IT environment. Whenever there is, events that do take place, typically those are going to trigger, some awareness around gaps and limitations and things that are happening that they weren't really prepared for within that business. So if you do look at a traditional IT environment, right, companies, small and medium-sized business, they have an on-premise infrastructure. They're typically, if they are outside of the four walls, they're logging in through a VPN. Maybe they're using, RDS, remote desktop services, or also known as terminal services to publish applications, or there could be web server or SaaS. There's limitations with all of those. So if you take, for example, a company that's all of a sudden forced to have all their workers work from home, and they are running a traditional IT model, the IT staff, if there is some, or what's, the limited IT staff they have, is going to be spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to, get VPN connections put on their computers to get them to go from home so they can still get into the network and access, obviously get tied into Active Directory and access their files, any applications that are running locally. So that's kind of the hair on fire. What do we do? How do we get this done? And then even once that is done, there's still limitations with that because you're still completely dependent upon that local network at that office and, of course, the infrastructure. So those things have become very much exposed, I would say, in a lot of these environments as of lately. So it's, for you guys out there kind of in the field and talking with companies and obviously, trying to figure out, how you can help them and putting the right solutions in place, understand that what are some limitations that business has, and then how can other, new technologies come in and replace what they're doing today and provide a better, more secure, more flexible environment where essentially they can access their core line of business applications anytime, any place, and anywhere. So the barriers. So we have, just like with any other type of technology, there's typically some type of pushback that we see. We'll call them objections. So, for one, there was, the obvious, kind of elephant in the room was the security, right? People are nervous about, I'm more comfortable with my employee accessing this data here within our four walls than I am having access to this data at home. So there's certainly, and that's a fair objection, and we certainly want to deal with that. But you kind of got to go a little bit deeper and talk about, understanding what that data is. How are they securing it today? How secure is it really within their current operating model? And then what is it in more of a mobility type solution? What does that look like, and what other security protocols can we actually put in place to lock that down and tighten them? I mean, it's a big thing, and it's certainly something that we need to address whenever it comes up, because explaining it is one thing, but really making them understanding it and seeing it and feeling it is a completely other thing. The second one is productivity and collaboration concerns. There is a big, I know our former CEO was one of them. He liked that people would be sitting in the room. He wanted to be in there, he wanted to be in the moment, and talk about it and dig in on these meetings where that's great, and there's certainly that's never going to go away. Having somebody be able to work remotely and with a collaboration software like a Teams, or obviously we all know Zoom, or one of the other UCAS types collaboration and meeting technologies, you don't have to work around people's schedule as much, right? If you got 20 people who need to be in a meeting and 4 people aren't able to be there that day, you can still continue to have that meeting and just have them join remote. So it helps to streamline the process with that to where nobody's missing out and having to try to catch up, because essentially you're able to access that and be a part of that meeting and collaborate with them no matter where you are, assuming you have an internet connection, of course. So that's good to obviously explain to them and understand. And then the last one here is the cost. We always say that, you shouldn't typically ever approach an opportunity, right, or a customer and look to cut their costs on their compute by taking them to the cloud. Now, where there is times and scenarios where this can actually be beneficial, and we can see a strong, total cost of ownership, depending on how they're doing it today. Traditionally, if you're introducing a new technology, right, you're bringing in something they do not have today, you're typically going to be increasing the cost in some form or fashion. Unless it's able to displace what they have that is more expensive. But I would just be mindful of that they're perceiving it as a higher cost, but you have to look at what the business outcome is and what they're looking for, and how does this specific technology help them to meet that objective that they're looking to get. So again, understand, some of the objections, and there's more, right? There's a lot more than this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff around the back end piece and who's doing it and the management, things of that nature. But, the top 3 that we're typically seeing with this, and especially with desktop as a service. Desktop as a service, for one, if we're bringing in a brand new technology, a new way for the employees to work, and to access their applications, there's going to be some additional costs. But, the way that that's overcome, I guess, would say, is the need for the technology and the solution is greater than the, call it, perceived risk that they feel around bringing in a new technology and increasing their cost. So the benefits. I think we all understand high level what the benefits are, but we're certainly going to, walk through those. And never, again, I don't mean to just kind of keep bringing this up, but, never have we really understood these benefits and the true power of it, except for the days like today, right, with what we're doing. So, I mean, the flexibility that a cloud-enabled infrastructure brings is massive. It's a trend that we've seen, coming on for a while, and it's never going to be the same. I mean, I think we can all agree that things are never going to be the same, never going to be like they were before. Some people may not change, but holistically, from the market view, things are never going to be the same. There's too many open wounds, or wounds have been opened, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, to really go back to where they were, because they're going to avoid trying to get in the situation. So giving that flexibility to those customers and to those employees, it's a big thing. The next is predictable cost. So I talked a little bit ago, a slide before about, cost savings, or this looking to increase costs, right? Bringing up their bottom line of their business and their operating cash flow. So from the predictability of it, though, is what's really nice. So obviously, I think we all know that, traditionally, if you're buying servers, your outline capital expenditure, you're planning for what they call capacity planning. So I'm going to buy this now. This is what I need. I think this is what I'm going to need within the next, call it, if we continue to grow as we are, this is what we need for the next 3 to 5 years. So they're going to basically buy more than they actually need right now so they can grow into it. Now, where the unpredictability comes with that is, what if a server fails, right? What if a server crashes? These unforeseen capital expenditures that businesses never really want to see. Some prepared for it, some are not prepared for it. Now, the one nice thing about, more of a managed hosted model is that it's going to be very predictable. It's a consumption base, so you're paying for what you need at that time, and then as you grow, the environment can grow with you. So there's not a need for having any type of planning for the future, because the scalability of what the cloud brings allows you to keep that predictable. Furthermore, when we start looking at desktop as a service type opportunities, I mean, we're even able to really basically nail down and pin down the exact dollar per employee that they cost the business to operate. So why is that good? Mergers and acquisition type companies, if they're going to look at a company to acquire, if they're going and saying, hey, we know it costs, call it $80 per user for us to have them in a full-blown virtual desktop and have all of their, oops, sorry about that, wrong button, and have all of their production environment there. It's a nice scalable model that is going to avoid any type of unforeseen capital expenditures, with the exception of stuff that they're doing, obviously, there locally. And last is talent. So one thing that we're seeing in the field is that companies want to hire talent, not location. And of course, that means that if I got an office in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're looking for a new salesperson or whatever the business is doing, they don't necessarily have to limit their talent pool to that geographical area they're in. They can start looking abroad, because if you do have these technologies in place and you're enabling them to be at full production mode, accessing core line of business applications, so on and so forth, with security wrapped around it, it gives them the ability to go out there and find more options, which is huge. And again, that one is going to be, I think, kind of a hockey stick, because after this this event, companies are going to recognize that hey, we don't really necessarily just need to be pigeonholing ourselves into our backyard for hiring talent or trying to get somebody to move. Of course, they can do that. Okay, so there's two technologies that we're going to talk about here that are kind of relevant towards the message. The first one is desktop as a service. The second one is going to be 365, and we'll get into that here in a second as well. But for those of you guys that don't know what desktop as a service is, if you ask me, like, give me one quick answer on what is DaaS, right? I'm going to say it's the ability to access your core line of business applications anytime, any place, anywhere. Desktop as a service is basically us providing an image, right, which is a desktop that they pop up and they work on that is their production environment. So if you're looking at a Windows 10 operating system on your laptop or your PC or what have you, that same experience is going to be what's happening in the virtual desktops. However, all the information is actually being stored in the cloud within RapidScale's cloud and managed in the back end, and then we're pushing that image out. So what does this allow for them to do, right? Of course, access applications, access data. Everything is about applications at the end of the day. So that's really what that enables, so they can go out there and work without having to be, again, kind of chained to their computer. The next one is scalability. Again, M&A always pops up with this is, any type of company that looks at potentially bringing on large quantities of users at one time, scaling them up, giving them a username and password, and telling them to go log on from their computer, from their home, their laptop, from a Chromebook, from a Surface, Mac, whatever it is. Here's your username and password. Download this Citrix receiver. Or if it's VMware, it could be VMware Horizon, download that, and you're off and running. So there is of course, the ability to kind of save some costs around maybe a per diem, per unit, or per person for their device without having to go out there and buy an expensive laptop, image it, set it up, set up the VPN on it, all those things that you would do when you're typically setting up a new employee. It becomes a much more seamless and standardized process when that happens. Business continuity, again, something happens at the office, right? Let's say it's just a local event that would happen. We got, fire, flood, act of God, what have you, at the office. You can go home and continue to work as long as you have an internet connection. That's big. And then the last one is security. And we're not going to have no time to really get into all the aspects of the security side here, but really we're locking down data. So, one of the fears is like, I don't want my employees accessing our data from a device that's not a, corporate issued device or what have you, right? Maybe it can have malware on it or whatever it is. But when it comes to a virtual desktop, whatever is actually happening on that device doesn't matter. As long as it's powered on, it's got an internet connection, we can lock that thing down so we can't have data get out of it, right? Or them try to get into it from an external source and access that data. So it's the integrity that's kind of wrapped in there and security that goes along with it, as well as a standardized process for all employees across the board. And you don't have to be, desktop as a service works within the four walls too, right? So, businesses are looking to go here because they can, move to more of a thin client, zero client model and publish that application out to them there when they're working at their office. If they need to go home, they can continue to work just as they were at the office at home. Sorry, fat finger in this thing. So those are kind of some of the ideas, right, around DaaS. Next one is 365. Not a whole lot really needs to be said about Office 365. A lot of companies are being kind of forced to go there. So I mentioned it earlier around the Office 2010 coming to end of life in October of this year. That's forcing a lot of people to get on there. But the other aspect of it is if you're 500 employees or under, you can no longer go to Microsoft and procure your traditional volume licensing like you did in the past. They're forcing you to go to 365. So the nice thing about, like a RapidScale, who's a CSP with Microsoft, and we do obviously 365, is getting them to that platform, right? Because it's a lot different than just installing license keys on a server based on the number of users you have and then having them access it, versus going in there and migrating data to from their previous Exchange or Gmail into the Office 365, setting up the teams, setting up, SharePoint, all those things that go along with the adoption and the using of it. We bring that level of expertise in on the back end, but 365 is going to continue to grow. We use it here. I was a little bit hesitant at first, right? Call me a late adopter, but of course, Dwayne and them were smart enough to force me to do it. But it's a great tool now. Within Teams and the collaboration, the chat feature, spinning up meetings, the voice component, the underlying voice component has gotten exponentially better with it. When they first started doing it with Skype and doing the conferencing, it was a little choppy. It wasn't a great experience. It's hands down a much better now, as well as there's some other complementary companies, voice companies that can leverage that back end to help even bring in additional features to that Teams software. So 365 here to stay. It's going to continue to get better, and it's certainly something to know about the power of it. So how do we fit in with all this at RapidScale? Because everything that we've just gone through, companies can do themselves. They can go buy 365 direct. They can buy Citrix licensing or VMware Horizon licensing and spin up a VDI infrastructure. Anybody doesn't know, so VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure is typically a terminology that's used for somebody that does it themselves, right? So they own the servers, right? Maybe it's colo, maybe it's on-premise, whatever it is, and they're going out there and procuring the licensing and managing it themselves, versus DaaS, where you're outsourcing it to a company like a RapidScale. So, what we do here is we enable this behavior and these adoptions. So let's take, for example, a company that's 50 employees, one guy on IT. Obviously, he's running around with his hair on fire a lot because he's having to do a lot of administrative changes and break fix and network and all that stuff, right? So they're like, hey, we like this idea. We CEO read an article in a magazine. It's like, great, I want to go to desktop as a service. They don't have the capability to do this themselves, right? As much as they'd like to try, they're gonna fail. So we come in and basically become an extension of that business. Let us bring our subject matter experts in here and our engineers, and basically migrate you guys to the cloud, manage that environment for you, and then provide that ongoing support for it. So where the IT guy is never going to not have value. We need him there. He's important to the business. He's important to us. But we can take those things that they might not be comfortable with, and of course enable that by pushing it out and getting it going for them to be able to get up to speed and actually utilize it. And then if there is challenges and if there are things that come up, we can of course we address that for them. The second piece would be, and let me take a step back. So when we're talking about desktop as a service, especially with RapidScale hosting it, typically we're talking about us parking those. If there's client server applications, they're going to be sitting within our data center. There's Active Directory there. There's file services. So everything that they're doing, their daily workloads and production is going to be sitting on RapidScale within our data center. And we also have what would be called a Citrix farm or a VMware Horizon farm. And we're going to be basically managing that, pushing that image out, and supporting those end users on a daily basis. And that's the holistic kind of full hosted, full managed model. And we can go in between. If it's larger companies, which we are starting to see, some of these larger, called mid-market enterprise companies are coming to us. Maybe they're doing VDI today. They're not very good at it. They have challenges, or they've got a large licensing upgrade that they're going to have to do. And they're coming to us and saying, hey, let's work together on this thing. Here's where we're strong, right? We're pretty good at, doing, base image updates and things of that nature, or end user support. But we need you guys to kind of handle some of the other sustainability stuff in the back end, so we don't have to deal with it. So we can handle more of the proactive stuff within our customers, or focus on more revenue-driven practices for the business. Next one, 365. I talked about it a little bit earlier. A lot of companies are being somewhat forced into this, just based off of their stature as a business from number of employees. But one of the biggest complaints that we hear about 365 is the end user adoption that goes into it. What does that mean? That means they've got the 365 suite, maybe it's an E3. But they don't really understand how to really leverage Teams, or they don't know, some of the other applications that are going into it that they use there. So, we have a software that we overlay on top of this that basically helps the training of the employees on an ongoing basis that integrates within 365, So it's kind of right there with them in the process. If they have questions, they could ask. If they need to go learn about new things, they could do it. So it really just helps that adoption, which is what people are wanting and businesses are wanting, because if they're paying for something and they've got all these tools and these features and functions, they really want their people to be able to use them, so they're getting the most out of the platform. The other side of that, kind of pre cut over or launched into their workers, is getting it set up. Migrating it from their current, whether it's an on-premise exchange, whether it's Gmail, whatever it is, migrating it from point A to point B being the Microsoft Cloud. So we come in there and basically handle that migration for them, white glove through and through, as well as the Azure Active Directory. Not a lot of people, if they haven't been in Azure and they haven't really been in 365, they won't really have much experience with Azure AD. So we can come in there and do that, and from there you can get obviously multi-factor authentication. You can get single sign-on. There's all types of Power BI. There's a lot of different features that they can enable. They are enabled to get by us going in there and stepping up for them, configuring it properly, and then ongoing managing it with them. So I apologize for the picture, and obviously anybody that's been through the TLA, apologize for having to sit through any of my stuff. But for those that haven't, I mean, the Technology Leadership Academy is actually, it's a great tool that we put together. This is not a RapidScale TLA. This is a cloud in general, understanding, going through certain different situations of businesses, different technologies, and really giving you guys a kind of a crash course into this holistic technology of things that are out there, so you can kind of understand it. A lot of our leadership, participated in these videos, so there's a lot of really knowledgeable people, with the exception of myself, that are doing these things. That it's really good information. I've been through the whole thing. It's good. I learned some stuff. I mean, we get a little deep on some SE side, right? Solution engineering. But a lot of it's really good information that you guys would benefit from. Last thing before we go into questions, we don't have it here today, but I know there's been a lot of questions from the field, right, and from our sellers and partners around some type of spiffs or initiatives that we're going to be running around some things we're doing. It's in the works, so kind of stay tuned. I mean, if you want some more information on it, reach out to your regional presence or whoever your contact is. And they can kind of help bring it to speed. But we will be launching something here that's going to be pretty cool. I think you guys are gonna like it, and certainly the customer base will. So that being said, I left a few minutes here for questions.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can't hear Andrew anymore.
I can hear you, Summer.
Hey, Andrew, are you still out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, perfect. So first question we had was, how does a UC soft phone work within a DAS environment?
It depends. It works. So I mean, we've done some POCs. We have some customers that do the full, audio, video, and all aspects of it. It just depends on the platform. Depends who it is. I mean, it's pretty agnostic for it. But we just have to kind of take a look and see how they're using it. There could be some additional configurations on the desktop if there needs to have that live video streaming. And to kind of put it in a better understanding is lining up your mouth moving with the words coming through at the same time, right through the virtual desktop. Could be some configurations, but we can do it, and it's been done before. So works great. I mean, it's a total package.
Awesome. And then someone said, because the applications are in the cloud, can you truly use any device, including a PC, Mac, iPad, etc.?
Yes, and the reason why, and I probably should have said this earlier, so it's good question. When I was going through earlier around the traditional IT model, you were saying that there's a lot of people are kind of tied to the VPN, right? You need to be tied into that actual network in order to access those applications. When it comes to a DAS environment, right, the applications can be sitting in our environment, but you're going over the public internet. You can go over the public internet. We can do like point-to-points, MPLSs, if they so choose. But you're going over the public internet, so you're accessing your applications via the virtual desktop. Now, if it's a SaaS, right, if it's like a web-based application, like a Salesforce or something else that you guys would do, I mean, you can access that inside or outside of the environment. The employees can. That's really going to be up to the be up to the business, right, and the IT leadership, whether or not they want to do that. They can lock it out to only access it through the desktop to where they feel it's more secure, or they can allow them to go out to just the public web and access that by there. But long answer short, yes.
Great. I'm just going to ask a couple more, but you guys, I'm writing these all down, so we will send them out in follow-up as well. I believe this one's regarding Office 365 and the end user training, but do you know if it's possible to provide a demo version or show that to a customer, the training portion?
Yes. Yeah, we have some information and some collateral that we can provide on that. And if we need to go in and actually do like a demonstration for them, we can do that, yes.
All right. Sorry, there's just so much to filter through. Let's end with this one. Should customers stay away from public Wi-Fi with DAS?
So yes, you should stay away from public Wi-Fi with anything, really. And if you're asking, but yes, I mean it's secured Wi-Fi's are always going to be better than some type of public Wi-Fi. Now, I mean sometimes you don't have that choice, but if you're sitting at Starbucks and you see some guy that's over there with like a big laptop, maybe two, he's kind of geeking out, maybe you shouldn't get on that network while he's there. But and then like airports, things of that nature. But other public Wi-Fi's, can be okay, such as hotels and stuff. But there's always going to be a risk whenever there's not some type of security protocol in place to access that.
Actually, let's end with this one, just so everyone maybe has an action item of who they can go target. Who would you say is the target customer size and revenue for these solutions, Lauder?
Yeah, so revenue is not really as important. So, I mean, small and medium business, call it 50 to 500 is a pretty good space. Typically they've got multi locations that they can looking to try to standardize. Where we fit and where we really complement a business is that they have if they have a smaller IT staff. So let's say you're 2% IT versus employees. So if you've got 100 employees, you have 2 guys. They're stretched thin, so they don't really have the time and the bandwidth to go out there and bring in new initiatives or roll them out themselves. We can come in there, basically become an extension of that business, enable those guys, right, to do what they're good at, and then for us to do what we're good at. So I mean, long answer short, that's that would be that answer. And then the other answer I would say is whoever wants it.
Awesome. All right, well, I have written all other questions down, and we will be sending out answers in the follow-up email, which will also include a copy of this presentation. So you're good to go, Lauder.
Okay, great. Again, thank you, everybody. Hope everybody's, things are good on the home front. We're safe and healthy. Certainly these are some trying times, but, us being, technologists in this space, we do have the ability to help a lot of companies out, right, which is what they need and what they're looking for. So I appreciate taking the time and investing in yourselves and trying to understand more. And, again, we'll follow up with some questions. And if you guys have anything else, reach out to your local leader, and we'll make sure that we get you taken care of. But other than that, have a great April, great Wednesday, and everybody be safe. Thank you.